All right, we're here today
Yeah,
with
but it was
Brecht
good.
Evens. How you doing, man?
Very good, thank you.
Cool. We're going to talk about the new book. Well, new as in it came out a couple years ago, but it's just coming out in English.
Yeah, I just had to leaf through it again to remind me what it is. Of course, I know the thing by heart. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you spent a lot of time with this. It's huge, and there's just so much detail. How long did it take you to complete?
it took me 4 years, I think. Uh, After 6 months of writing, I could start doing pages, and then the whole thing took me 4 years to do, which seemed enormous. And then after I finished it, I promised myself very explicitly that I would only do something very small and simple and easy to easy in architecture, like a simple project. But then I started doing exactly the opposite, and I've been spending, I'm getting to 3 years of working on the next book, and I have maybe 100 pages of the 500 that it might become. So it's a big and particularly complicated book I'm making. I can't even guarantee that I'm gonna get to the end of this one.
Wow.
I mean, maybe I will throw my hat in the ring. I'm used to just marrying the project and sitting it out and making it work until the end. But this one is a huge work, yeah. And I'm not a workaholic at all.
Really?
Oh no, yeah, no. I just this is my day job. I don't have any other particular commitments, some illustration work or some other stuff people ask me, which can be distracting. But no, I'm not addicted to working from all day long, or I don't do 12-hour days or anything like that usually. I like to have a fun life.
Yeah.
And the comic should be part of that. The comic should be part of a very pleasing brain training. I think that's with work feels to me a bit like what I hear people who work out say, or people who jog. The thing that it hurts the first 10 minutes, and then some kind of endorphin is loosened, and it starts becoming. You get some kind of jogger's high. This I get after after it first hurts a bit, maybe the first hour or two, and then it starts becoming a more euphoric experience. But I don't know if it's true about sports. I've never tried sports more than 10 minutes.
Last time we spoke, you mentioned that you do move around a lot when you're working, like it's a physical thing for you.
Yeah, first I move around a lot because the desk is pushing me away. If what I'm doing is not very easy, then I recoil a bit from it. Then I get down to the business of it, and after a while it starts going very well. Usually, I don't. My only problem is laziness, not writer's block. So it usually starts happening and working out quite fast when I get to work, and then I start moving again because I start having fun with it and putting some music on, perhaps, and dancing. And there's also the process of paint drying and for the way I draw, it's necessary to look at the drawing from a distance and figure out my next move, so I don't miss out on any possible fun decisions and tricks I can put in the drawing.
Nice. You use the word comics. I was going to ask you, is that how you would describe your books?
Yeah, comic books. Yeah.
Okay. Because I mean, to someone who's unfamiliar with like all the possibilities of comics, I feel that to call your books comics would probably not do them justice.
Yeah, the term graphic novel was invented, as
Yeah,
a
I'm not a big
way.
fan.
Yeah, it was invented as a way to give adults an excuse to read books, I think, and adult publishers an excuse to publish them, or just as a, um, and that's how I see it, as just as a publicity label, something to help help adults open it up in a public space, you know. But so I don't take it seriously, but I did take it seriously maybe 15 years ago when the word started getting banged about a lot. Um, uh, I feel like definitely to the young artist that I was, it felt like um, a call to arms, like an invitation. Like I always wanted to do comics, and then there was this invitation that um, people think comics can be for adults now, at least some people, and we're just looking for people to make them. Like anyone can apply and start doing dense, complex, detailed, layered work in comics. So I do think it was some kind of um, it had a bit of a calling effect, a bit of a, yeah, like it made me sit up 15 years ago.
What comics did you read growing up?
In Belgium, we had a lot of big adventure series, which were great. In which you would call the tradition of franco belge comics, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So you would know Tintin,
Mm-hmm.
which I definitely read, but which I still appreciate Tintin a lot now, and perhaps I appreciate some nuances of it that I didn't appreciate when I was a child, when compared to some other noisier comic books, it might have seemed a bit clean sometimes when I was young. And there were a lot of other much messier, hugely popular children's adventure comic book series. We had like Susken and Wiske, which I have no idea. There must be some, maybe they tried to publish that in English, but I don't know what they translated it as. But that was huge in our place. And there was even a very particular kind of a huge children's comic book series called Urbanus, which seemed to have slipped by any censoring into the children's corner of supermarkets. But it had a lot of heavy themes. It had street prostitution. It had the alcoholism. It had depression. It was a very it pushed a lot of buttons when I read it as a child. It was quite heavy and very rebellious for something that children were buying all the time en masse.
Yeah. Was there a moment where you realized that this was what you wanted to do with your life?
I always wanted to do it, very much so. I dreamed of doing it. As a child, I was thinking like, I want to be a comic book artist, maybe an inventor, because when I was really small, I still drew very complicated machines to do simple things, like an endless system of tubes with a few knives on the way to peel an apple, things like this. And then maybe after yards of tube later, there would be some sprinklers to wash it. But I asked my mother, what would be the adult word for the adult version, the realistic version of what I want to do, and she told me something, maybe architect, engineer, architect, something like this, because I wanted to appear to be a mature, smart child. So I spent a lot of time answering engineer, architect when adults asked me what I was going to do. But I always wanted to do comics, and I got closer, and I allowed myself to get closer and closer to it in adolescence. And by the time I was 17, I was published in some kind of small anthology. Like maybe there were 500 copies of it. It was like a self-published by a group of comic artists. But at this point, I realized that technically I'm now printed on paper in a black and white anthology, and I'm 17. Technically, I am a comic artist now. That's it. It can't even really be taken away. Like, I guess we'll see what we do about money, but that got figured out quite quickly in the next years. Yeah, it worked out better than planned, actually.
Nice. Where does your love of color come from?
I used to suck at it. I probably always loved it. I don't think I love it more than anyone else loves it, but it's important for me to do it right. I don't know if very colorful comics are less typical in the States maybe than they are in Europe. But I was always doing colorful comics, but coloring in, you know.
Yeah.
Making line drawings and then coloring them in, which creates a lot of aesthetical problems. It's hard to suddenly start making choices about color when the drawing is already there. It's actually easier to do it well if you draw on direct color, like I'm doing now, because you automatically start drawing using contrast. Whether it's the contrast between a warm and a cold color, or a dark and a light color. It's all about contrast, because contrast makes something legible, and so in the end it's really more about form than about what colors I choose. I don't think the choice of colors is particularly important. Just it's the pleasure people take from my colorful drawings is that they are that they stay very legible, I guess. That
I guess the
color
composition is equally as important, but
the color itself is drawing the figures instead of being added on. Is probably what's doing it. But I suppose I still think we're reacting mostly to to pleasing shapes, rather than we do to wow, look at this green together with this violet. I don't know. I would be surprised if that was what was really pushing our buttons more than shapes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But it is a very...
But I'm not sure about it. There was a thought I had a few days ago, but I haven't worked out if it's just bullshit. maybe color is extremely emotionally important, and I forgot.
I'm jumping ahead to the question I had, because Rodolf, I mean, at the end he's on a beach, and there's in the middle of the story there's a flashback to Lake Geneva, and then he hops on the party boat. He seems very connected with water. Yeah. His color is red, and I was wondering if like this connection with water sort of cools that fire.
I like that. Yeah. Well, at least on a much more in a much more banal way, at least he contrasts well with a blue background. Often there are color choices I make for characters which are influenced by some very basic things, like one of the things I do is in my comics is when someone speaks, the text is the color of the character.
Yeah,
that helps me. That frees me from balloons and tools like that. So when two characters are going to spend a lot of time together, I make sure beforehand that they will have colors that contrast enough. Sometimes it's these kind of choices that influence. And in the case of this book, there is like the main characters have the main colors. There's a yellow, a blue, and a red one. So we extremely quickly know who we're dealing with of the main characters. At least those three, we won't be confusing with each other. About the color red, I wonder, I'm just going to open it up. Just want to check if, I hope he's called Rodolf and not
Rodolf.
Rudolf.
It's Rodolf. Yeah.
Since he is red-nosed, it would be better that we didn't double down on that.
It's definitely with an O. My bad pronunciation.
And yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with water lately. It's been years now that I'm very much into marine themes and drawings of fish and using water and the sea as a motif, but I'm forgetting where it comes from. Maybe I've taken more trips than I usually do to the sea or something. But yeah, my next book is quite sea oriented.
Okay. Can you tell us anything about that, or is it gonna be a surprise?
It should be sort of an adventure book, quite a detective kind of story, and also a bit of I have a ridiculous list with stuff, movies or books that it has something in common with, and it has something in common with The Truman Show, something with Moonrise Kingdom, something in common with Harry Potter or Home Alone, also with Mr. Robot, also with, oh my God, there are way too many names here. And something to do with Pinocchio too. I feel like as long as it has things in common with hundreds of stories, it should be original. I think it's gonna be a kid is gonna be the main character, and the kid is having having to find his disappeared dad, his father, and he has a lot of secret and mysterious enemies out to get him.
Oh.
The inspiration comes from having had a very spectacular and very amusing and exciting bout of psychosis 8 years ago in a very glamorous context. I was in Tokyo for a fancy illustration job. So doing something glamorous in a glamorous context, when I was already losing my pedals for a while, but it's climaxed in this very Tokyo is a place with a lot of input for someone who's already going into a state of psychosis, which means psychosis means, among other things, that everything is a personal message to you. Everyone is looking at you, and a lot of signs are being shown to you. A lot of very mysterious conversations are going on using the labels on cans of soda to buses stopping. They are stopping for you, but you should understand what the logo means that's on this bus. This kind of stuff. And I've been wanting to do something with this very exciting state, this very adventurous feeling that I had, this grandiose, megalomaniac feeling. And I was not getting anywhere by letting it take place in a glamorous context. And it started to click for me when I saw an old little paragraph I wrote in a sketchbook where a young boy is talking about his summer vacation, as in a writing exercise on the first day of school. Perhaps you would have to write about what you did this summer, you know. And he's writing a mix of credible and incredible things, where it's hard to understand what's real and what's not. And this little paragraph that I abandoned a long time ago, it predated the whole psychosis phase, but that felt like that's my character, living in more in a countryside, a place where he could hide, a place where there is a an overseeable amount of impulse, and not something like an incredible city full of people like Tokyo or Paris, but a place where he and we as a reader can notice have one input after another, not everything at the same time. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
And still is going to be a very complicated 500-page book, which I will have to cut into two episodes, I guess.
That must have been particularly intense being in Tokyo. I've never been, but everyone who I've talked to who's visited said it's like going to like outer space anyway.
Yeah. Yes. And I got to see it in a very unique way because I had zero sense of boundaries at all in a country that has incredible sense of boundaries, I think. I kept walking into spaces I wasn't supposed to. Yeah, there was a lot of that, a lot of not respecting signs. Anyway, of course, as a tourist, you can't read anything anywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, but of the many adventures that were compacted in the 6 days that I was walking free on the streets in Tokyo, one of the sweeter, smaller adventures was barging into a cyber cafe at 4 o'clock at night, just wanting to take a rest, wearing an extremely strange outfit, and the very young owner wanted to kick me out, and I got angry, and he got angry, but we couldn't understand the words each one of us was saying, so he opened Translate, and we started arguing because there were computers everywhere, so we started arguing in paragraphs. So it was like as if we were having some kind of Facebook dispute, but standing next to each other, looking at each other on the same computer. Is very, I think this must be quite a unique thing, a unique experience to have a fight, but have it in real life with the politeness,
Yeah.
the technical limitations of having to wait for the other to type his paragraph.
Yeah, that is super polite.
Yeah, strange combination of things.
Now, that episode informed the City of Belgium as well, right?
I mean, yeah, I would say there are some maybe some strings of it, but actually, I'm not sure. This may be nitpicking, but I would describe what happens to the Rodolf character, who is one of the 3 main characters in the book, as I wrote him as switching from depressed to manic, and there is still, I think psychosis might be called a step up or down, however you like, from mania, where you go into full delirium, full over-interpretation of everything. Mania is more of a incredibly outsized sense of your own capabilities, and which is also a great feeling, of course, and quite a dangerous one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can imagine that if you are completely confident that you can make $1 million the day after, in a few hours, you might make some bad financial decisions. Or if you're extremely confident that no one could really harm you, that you might not be careful with your choice of friends. And I got very lucky. Nothing really bad happened. But that's more what's going on. It's he's going from the way I would describe those 2 states is a depression would be imagine every aspect of your life completely injected with a huge dose of fear. Every single aspect of it add a lot of fear. And then mania would be every aspect of your life. Try to imagine what it's like if you took every last little bit of fear out of it. I think that's feels like the main ingredients, the main thing, dosage thing that was going on in the switch between these two states.
All three of the characters seem to be dealing with some level of depression.
In the case of the Victoria character, I think it's part of her mystery. In the case of the Rodolf character, it's quite explicit, and he's the most based on me. In the case of Victoria, there's another question going on. We discover that she has had a nervous breakdown, and the question we are looking at, or what's the mystery that's going on, is, are her protective friends and family that's surrounding her creating a new breakdown, or are they protecting her from it? Her question seems to be, what does she need, seems to be the mystery of her character. But obviously she's been dealing with stuff, and she's also inspired by someone I knew, I still know. The Yona character, I would say he's chemically functional. I think his brain is working the way his brain should, but he has other, he has his own set of troubles. He's
he's the least affected, but he's kind of low
level. He's hedonistic with a lot of ambitions that sort of bump into each other. He is really into presenting himself a certain way to people. He's quite touching, I think, in the way he it's like he seems to be a scoundrel wanting to be a hipster, and he's not blasé about the state of being a hipster. He's not a hipster shitting on other hipsters. He's, I think, ambitiously out to become, or what they would call maybe in Paris, a bobo, just some high class, flashy person is what he wants to be. And he's very influenceable, very little self-discipline, and he carries around a bit of a very messy past that of which the shameful parts he's trying to shovel under the mat, and but there are still some good memories he has. There's some flashy parts to it. He also wants to talk about this messy past, or because there are some glamorously swashbuckling aspects to his past too. A lot going on with him, but I wouldn't say anything like mental illness or something. He is just a big appetite for adventure and and makes a lot of bad judgment calls.
Yeah, I wouldn't say depression. He just seemed bummed out that none of his friends are around on his last night in town.
Yeah, right. You can sense that his friends have had some tiring experiences with him.
All three of them have huge backstories. Like there's the whole Baron Samedi aspect of Rodolf that we only get like little glimpses of. It seems
I think the backstory stuff is sort of appears quickly, I think, right? It flutters by, and then we get back into the main action, or at least the main dialogue.
But it seems like you know these characters inside and out. Like you've lived with them for a long time.
Yeah, and I do put a lot of myself in them, but not because I want to testify, or not because I want to write my memoirs and make some kind of roman clé or something, put hidden messages in there about me. It's more that when I'm writing, I feel like now I need this kind of thing to happen to the person, and then I will, because I'm the person I have lying around, I will first check my own past to see if anything can, if there's anything useful there, anything at least I heard about or saw or lived through myself that can take the place, and then I will not ask around for other people's experiences because I have it on me. It's like some stuff that's in the fridge already. I don't have to go shopping for it. So it's more almost because of practical reasons. A lot of autobiography extremely deformed autobiography slips into the books.
Hmm. I want to talk about the settings. Because we start off with the restaurant, and you mentioned the color, the primary colors for each of their names. Actually, at first I didn't get that Victoria was going to be one of the main characters, because she's in this group conversation, and it could have really been anybody, and the whole restaurant is full of, groups.
I like very much that you noticed that. I'm very pleased.
Cool.
Because the book takes its time to start moving. It takes a lot. It takes. This was on purpose. I wanted us to move around with the people in this restaurant for quite a bit. And in the case of Victoria, I wanted us to choose her as the main character, or I wanted to hide her a bit. So first we see her from the back a lot, and I wanted her because she is, I think, extremely charismatic, or at least that's how I tried to write her. I wanted her to earn her place a bit, as if I wanted her to attract the reader's attention without any signaling that this is our main character. So she's in a big group, she's talking, she's seen from the back, and the idea is that we start noticing her in particular, that we start being attracted to her even before there is any official announcement of here we have our protagonists. So I take my time a bit with the dialogues between these friends, and because to test, I was confident in her character that she doesn't need to be announced to grab our attention, and I wanted to test that, I guess, or it seemed like an interesting game to play.
Yeah, and speaking of like seeing her from the back, what stood out, I love her hair.
Yeah.
Was there an inspiration for that, or?
Well, one of the things I had a bit of fun with, a bit of, I would say, superficial fun, but, harmless fun, was doing some cameos and digging up some characters from The Wrong Place, the last city nocturnal party book I did, which was predated by 8 years or so. And there's someone who has pretty much that haircut on the cover of The Wrong Place. One of the people running up the stairs at some point. Oh. And I guess this is just Easter egg stuff, making some little links and bridges between these two books, so that they together can give us a sense of an even bigger city than the sense we already get.
Yeah, because my next question was going to be to tell me about Disco Harem, because that's
yeah. So, and another thing, so she has this, which was really fun to draw. It's she has this pearl haircuts. I don't know how you would describe it. It's not extremely clear, which is nice because that's possible in comic books. Yeah. It's not extremely clear if we're dealing with beads or with some other kind of graphical translation of another kind of haircut. But she looks like an Egyptian princess, I would say, like a Cleopatra or a Nefertiti. Then also she's wearing a onesie with a fish scale motif. And there was some, to give her a fish scale motif on a onesie, comes through the torturous way of one of the scenes I had in mind for her. One of the central moments for her is her being locked up by her friends in a space, who are afraid that she's, falling off the wagon, that she's she gets locked up, and she calls out to them. So I felt like there was a little bit of a mythical thing going on with like a siren call, with her friends having to resist, not open the door for this charismatic, argumenting and suffering person. So a little bit of a very, very obscure siren reference in the clothing.
Okay.
But you were asking about Disco Harem, the endless disco.
Yeah.
Which went even more caricatured even more in this book. I think there are some the endlessness of the disco is even more explicit, with some drawings where we see almost a tunnel, was it Piranesi like space that must be miles deep.
Yeah.
If it would have to look like that. Yeah, the disco harem first turned up in the wrong place, which I made almost 12 years ago now, I think. It's I think I dreamt of a space like that. I had a very nice dream of walking through the most perfect imaginable party space, where the colors and the light changes space after space. The music and the kind of people change. You walk up a little flight of stairs, you open a little door, and there's a total other vaulted ceiling and an orange atmosphere and some klezmer music going on, and then there's an elevator to the side. I dreamt in this space before, I think. Yeah.
Nice.
Before I started drawing it.
And it's also where Yona meets his wife, which is cool. The little flashback there.
Yeah. And yeah, I was imagining him meeting, well, the crossover between book stuff is doesn't have any really importance for the story, but they're tiny little presents for anyone who's read the two books. But yeah, this huge endless disco it's like it has to be the pinnacle of adult entertainment at night, the place where everything is possible, something that is even all the clubs in Berlin put together aren't close. The real battlefield for our wants and needs at night. Yeah, I wanted it to be phantasmagorically huge, because in a comic book, maybe more than even in other mediums, that the fact that it is like that it is a crazy space, an impossible space, bothers the reader less. I think it's less in the way it requires no explanation. I think it's an exciting thing to look at, but that because in this medium, particularly of comics, it's not in the way of connecting with the characters. It's just going on around it in a calm. It's drawings; they don't move. It's incumbent on me to add movement into the drawings and spectacle, and make it dynamic to our eye. So with the backgrounds as with the characters, I try out a lot of stuff and preferably a lot of stuff that is only possible in a drawing. And something like the disco harem space is exactly a good example of that. Everything about that space seems to me only to be possible in a comic book.
Yeah. The titles, the different languages are all different, which put in my mind, because it's the City of Belgium in English, I just assumed this was like a fantastical version of Brussels. But the French title is, how would you pronounce it?
Les Rigoles.
Les Rigoles, which is a real...
Which I even really don't. It seems like to be little drainage canals.
Okay.
But it's actually the name of the bar where I wrote most of it here in the neighborhood. And I already came up with and rejected 300 titles before someone suggested naming it after. I had a lot of trouble finding the French title in particular. I had quite a bit of trouble finding the Dutch title, but the English title was there from the beginning.
Okay.
It was always the City of Belgium in my head. All the files are called COB. And then it's just the other languages I had to come up with the title. And mainly it's a lame joke having to do with us in Europe in the Bush era, having a laugh about Americans not distinguishing between is Brussels the city and Belgium the capital, or is it the opposite? Which is not a very fair thing to mock, because I'm not sure how many Belgians know the capitals of your states and what is the name of the state and what would be the name of their capital. That would be quite a specialist knowledge here too.
Okay.
But I felt like the lame joke had a good was a perfect label for the book as the city in which everything takes place, and the city part of it precedes even the characters I invented. I knew I was going to make a city book. The city is a mashup of Brussels, Paris, London, Barcelona, Berlin, Ghent, small and big cities that I've been to or lived in and loved. It's just one big European soup. So calling it the City of Belgium seems right, because we're geographically at the center of it, and we also have no international identity at all, apart from being something in the middle of Europe, I think.
Coming from one of the smaller states, I kind of got that, like, as it could be just grouped as a city rather than, one of the main international like New York or LA. But if you see what I'm saying.
You get the tickle it gives you, perhaps, to make something grandiose out of the little place you come from, and
yeah.
to present it as if it were the city to end all cities, or the most incredible country. It's a fun tickle.
I really like the world building that it crosses over between the books. Like, I like that when it happens in authors' journey. Like Nabokov has stories that characters will intersect. Like Panine shows up in Pale Fire as a completely different professor. I was wondering, what are some of your favorite books and authors?
That I've thought of lately. Well, I think one of the ones I think about most are the ones that are somehow useful to what I'm working on. Those I keep coming back to in my mind, because I'm still figuring out what I can steal. And one of them lately has been The Man Who Was Thursday by G.K. Chesterton.
Yeah.
Because I'm writing a psychotic inspired adventure story, and I would say that is a perfect example of it.
Yeah.
And the fact that he gives a lot of play to some very offensive fantasies in it too. He seemed to have been quite staunchly and boyishly and extremely right-wing, but which sort of makes it more interesting in a way, because that means that the qualities of a book like this, which is it's a very great distillation of an adventure somehow. It's almost like Peter Pan, a book I keep thinking about lately for the last couple of years too, in the way how it stays focused on the adventure feeling without losing itself in details or getting bogged down. It's very fresh and also very right-wing, but that doesn't seem to hurt the qualities of the book. It's because I guess any extremist fantasy could nourish, as long as he toys with it, as long as it's playful, could have nourished a psychotic fantasy world in which the great enemies for the big part of the book are anarchists. An incredible invasion, almost like the orcs of anarchists, that is threatening Europe, and it's an incredible romp. It's probably the best way to call the book. every chapter he comes up against a new adversary who has a very specific way of being disquieting. Every new adversary has a very specific, concrete way of. One of them is an old man who walks extremely slowly, but he can't get rid of him in the streets. He seems to be moving extremely fast. Another one is he's in a sword duel with an adversary who keeps losing little parts of his body but not bleeding because he's wearing some sort of offensive Semitic fat suit under which is a nice blonde English lord who is actually his friend. But they have this very specific. It has the taste of a dream, I think, and the kind of dark fantasies and textures and things that we mostly forget when we wake up and we tell a dream. It has the parts that make a dream really interesting, I think. It's hard to translate these feelings, these observations and these situations that are very hard to translate to daily life and normal normal reasoning. So I get it's one of the reasons I think it's so boring to hear someone talk about the dream they had most of the time. And I had fun with a long dream telling scene in the City of Belgium at some point too. But I am not myself interested particularly in someone else's dreams, except if they can hold on to this thing that makes them so, for all of us, so different from our daily life. And that's mostly, the person is probably, who's telling his dream is most of the time will probably be frustrated himself and not able to tell what's going on. The result is it's like overcooked vegetables, all the taste got out of it.
Yeah, it's very hard to render a dream.
And a dream and connecting also to a psychosis, with extremely rich delirium going on in that book, and going on in any old person's dreams all the time, and going on in people with psychosis having waking dreams, which is fun for me because when I was in this state, my mind was racing all the time, no sleep required for a long while. The thoughts and imaginings never stopped, and they had a rich texture and a huge amount of imagery that I want to hold on to. And it's easier to hold on to some of this because they were like waking dreams, I think.
I want to ask you about the taxi driver's stories. That was great, how he would just pick up like a little snippet of what each passenger said and just spin it into something fantastic.
I'm very happy about the stuff you pick out, because the things you're taking out are I think the riskier things I did, the things that where I'm taking a bit more risk with the reader's attention span. I felt like when I finished it was, oh, should I have done that? But I also, when I was writing it, I loved the taxi driver who keeps spinning yarns with elements from something that's told to him by the last passenger that he saw, and this story within a story stuff going on. Yeah.
And then like Rodolf's cab ride turns almost Dadaist at one point with your use of like the lettering, and then Victorian Carmen's gets very hallucinatory again. Like you mentioned the fish design, the fish like come out.
Yeah, I none of this comes from any. I've never been much inspired by psychedelic or hippie culture, but you don't have to look far to find psychedelic things. It's just when you start looking at drawings and imagining how can we break this open and make this 3 times more expressive, that you start getting psychedelic effects. But you would be able to see this in cubism, I would say, Cubism is quite psychedelic, and it also makes sense. It's trying to show us a whole lot of parts of something that you can't see in a picture, in a photo, that you can't see if you sit still looking at something in real life. Cubism is like a solution maybe to show us experience. Like in real life, we can walk around stuff, and we walk around in a city, and we go down the stairs, and we get into a car, and we go from an inside space to an outside space. So I'm like cubistifying the city and trying to show more stuff. But then also something like Escher. I don't think Escher took any like drugs ever. He seems to have been, looks to me like Escher was a professorial kind of drawer who had a lot of fun inventing himself a challenge and then doing all the work it takes to perfectly execute that challenge. Like the reflection of myself in a room in a reflecting ball, almost impossible to draw. This is very hard, so now I'm going to do this. Or convex and concave, the drawing where you never know if something is protruding or what's the opposite of it? Like concave, I would guess. If it's going back or going to the front, this is it's like very like a good attentive student ending up with very psychedelic results, because he gives himself this extremely complicated challenge and executes it perfectly. And another painter I like to mention that context is landscape painter Charles Bergfield, who I'm quite sure was not on anything. He seems to have been a pretty quiet or unassuming guy, doing watercolors in the in swamps and in the countryside, and but he tries to paint light the way we experience it. To give a very dumb example, but he does it in a lot of smart ways, he will often have a black dot, a black or dark dot where the sun is, because when we look into the sun, we get the opposite optical image. So we will, in real life, we do see a lot of black suns when we look around. We get confused by our surroundings, and he tries to draw the sound of cicadas, perhaps, grasshoppers or mosquitoes. He uses tricks to make us sense that there's a lot of mosquito noise going on around the swamp, for example. Or he will draw perhaps a bird flying by in a way, the way we experience a bird flying by, not having a static bird still in the sky, or electric wires. He will draw them in a way that communicates that they are buzzing and that the whole pole they are connected to is buzzing with it. He will try to put a lot of experience into a painting that is visual.
I like that. I don't know his work. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. Bergfield. Charles.
Something about your characters I want to talk about is I like how they seem free of cruelty for the most part. I first noticed this like in the earlier books, like you had mentioned that the wrong place is sort of like popular versus unpopular, and Robbie's very popular, but he's really cool to Gary, although he didn't go to his party. Like when he sees him again, like he's not a dick to him. And like Peterson, like dealing with Leslie and Dennis, like, you know, these awkward outsiders, he takes his time, like and like in the new book, City of Belgium, like Buzz, like although he has a violent streak, he really wants to be a good friend to Jonah, and even though he beats him up at one point, like the whole time, like it seems like he's trying to do the right thing, and like your characters seem free of cruelty, which was an observation.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many people are have like and would have a cruel gene. someone like Buzz in the City of Belgium, he must be one of the worst dudes in my comic book. He's endlessly over the top, offensive. He's a complete disaster. But essentially, he is the kind of guy who will get into a fight with you in a bar and then do what I find even more annoying. Then he will need you to become friends with him and have drinks with him, because that's all part of his big, loud process that you will also get strung along, and then you will go home with a strange feeling of, okay, so an asshole beat me up, and then it was sort of like nice and we were buddies, and what just happened to me?
Yeah.
why couldn't it just end with like maybe someone going to jail, or someone getting knocked out? Why did I have to go through all this second psychological chapter with this needy guy who needed to prove something by beating me up, and then needed to prove something again with using my body by getting me drunk and telling each other stories about our past and becoming buddies and like exchanging phone numbers maybe. It's even worse in a way, but extremely human, and you see it all the time. And when I sense someone sitting down in my environment close to me with that kind of energy going on, with this kind of needy energy, perhaps I miss out on some interesting experiences, but I've learned how to turn my body, how to maybe change tables, how to how to smell this kind of person from a distance. But what's obvious to any writer is that you can never make a hate pact together with your reader against your characters. You can never make a little deal that we're gonna hate or dunk on one of the characters. Why would you conjure up a person just to shit on? You're gonna want that would be an extremely boring and unnourishing experience. I'm not trying to like on purpose show the good in people or things like this. It's just that we're gonna have to see something going on in their minds and how it clumsily expresses itself. But it's not going to be interesting if it's going to be. I mean, there is some really good cringe humor, but the best cringe humor is actually showing you very clearly some real stuff.
Yeah, like when Yona runs into the entire group of his friends that he is called, turning the corner. That was great.
I like it when these kind of Greek chorus moments happen in a book, like this kind of a bit more staged moments, like Woody actually, these symmetrical moments. That's the kind of stuff that comic books or stories shouldn't lose, just sacrifice just to for a general sense of realism. All the people that we see him call at the beginning of the story, they are all there. Every single one of them is there all together without him going out. It's a very clean, simple gag-like moments that is also very, I think, real or at least about something very real. But I like it when it's when it has this extreme kind of pop to it, this kind of gag-like feeling without losing any of its credibility, I think.
Another moment I really liked, and I was wondering, did you consider bringing Rodolf and Victoria together? Because there's that moment where she's standing outside and he's walking out, and it's just a really nice, and you get the feeling they're about to meet, and then they pass as usually would happen in real life. But did you
exchange in a very intense glance?
Yeah. Was there an urge to bring them together, or did you consider that at all?
Well, yeah, Rodolf also meets Yona at the point. Yona is sort of a a random, almost unimportant, emotionally unimportant encounter in the night for Rodolf, but actually he catalyzes the turn that Rodolf makes from depressive to manic early in the book. And then we have this, because these three characters' adventures are woven through each other, but not touching most of the time. I guessed at some point that there would be a will they, won't they feeling for the reader, even though, okay, we're 200 pages in, these two haven't met. They both seem troubled. They might, would they understand each other and build some utopical crazy person community somewhere? This is an idea I toy with in the book, which I quite clearly don't agree with. There's a phrase in the book that feels like the most, I would say, Instagrammable phrase in there. I forgot what's it in English, something like ordinary people don't know how to deal with extraordinary people, something like that. And it's one of these flashy phrases that I sometimes like to put in there. And it's a bit of a bitchy thing to do, because I know that these are the ones that might catch on more than the rest. And I generally, when I put one of these flashy, resounding phrases in there, it's something I don't particularly agree with at all. But we get, I feel like in real life, we get distracted by well-formed phrases all the time. I think most of what Oscar Wilde said was probably not true, demonstrably bullshit, but it just, it just sounds so just right when he says it, doesn't it? But I don't extraordinary people, or more to the point of the book, I don't feel like mentally troubled people are a much bigger help to mentally troubled people, apart from sharing experiences, than so-called normal people or whatever. I think mentally troubled people are dealing most of the time bravely with a sickness, and so they definitely need a lot of healthy people who can chip in and take care of them, and sometimes intensely and long and dependably take care of them. There is no crazy person utopia that's going to exist ever. Which is good. That it should not be tried. It should not be tried.
Cool, man. Well, I think that's all my questions. You got anything else you want to add?
I don't know. They were fun ones. I like the stuff you dug out of there. It was fun. It's been a while that the book's out, so it's been fun, like exploring it with you again.
Oh, cool.
I feel it's a good confidence boost. Also, I feel like okay, those choices were the right ones. Good. At least someone gets it. So that's a good start for the launch. I don't know if I have anything like pluggy to say, or I guess it's called the City of Belgium. It's out now. That's kind of stuff. Drawn and Quarterly is the publisher. It's quite a ride, and it's a very important one to me. And of all my comic books, I would call it perhaps the most graphic novel-y. But I don't know what your connotation with. I don't know what that word evokes in your mind. So who knows?
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you.